Well, you know it's me and Chris heads up. It's just which one of us is going to lose.
It does say something.
I used to hate this game.
I might hate this game, dude. What the is going on?
Anymore.
I think
Best
it's great.
game ever.
How many 21? You know how much money you get? 21K is? You can buy like a used Hyundai with that.
Start calling you Jump Street.
Why? Oh, 21 Jump Street. I get it. Took me a second. Yeah, let's see a flop. Please pick me.
We are taking a look at a hand from a 500, 1,000 with a 1,500 big blind ante cash game from Triton Poker. They've been putting on some epic cash games recently, so make sure you check them out. In this hand, LLinusLLove raises it up to $3,000 under the gun +1. Vivian calls with pocket eights in the hijack seat. Anson on the button calls with ace-6 offsuit. And then Chris Brewer, poker coaching coach extraordinaire, opts to call from the big blind with 6-5 offsuit. Chris Brewer is the effective stack in this hand, playing 79 big blinds deep. Let's head to the flop.
Ace 4, 3, 2 spades, and Linus Loeliger makes a set. Chris Brewer, a straight draw, open-ended. Anson thinks his top pair is best on this board texture, usually will be.
The flop comes ace of clubs, 4 of spades, 3 of spades. Chris Brewer has an open-ended straight draw and backdoor flush draw. LLinusLLove has bottom set. Vivian has a really bad flop for pocket eights. And Anson has top pair junkie kicker. They check around to Anson, which means Linus checked with his set. You may ask, why in the world would you want to check with a set on a board that contains flush draws and straight draws? And essentially, when you are playing multi-way from out of position with multiple players yet to act, checking is usually pretty nice with a ton of your range, especially when you have almost no super nut hands in your range. That said, I think this is a spot where I probably would have just bet in his shoes. Bottom set's usually a very, very good betting hand in general. If you do check, you're looking to check raise. You're not looking to check call and play this overly slowly. But typically on the ace-high boards, you can get away with betting some portion of the time, and I think bottom set's a hand that really does like to bet. That said, Linus is a good, strong, world-class cash game player, and he knows exactly what he's doing, so we're going to presume he's right. He checks. Over to Anson. He bets 8,000 with his top pair marginal kicker, which is reasonable. Let's see how Brewer responds.
Brewer hunting for the deuce or the 7.
Chris Brewer with his open-ended straight draw opts to just call. You may say, should he just rip it all in for 80,000 bucks? I think that's a little bit optimistic. The alternative is to check raise to something like 22,000 out of his 79,000 stack, but then if he gets shoved on, he's in a pretty nasty spot where he needs to fold because he's going to be dominated by flush draws some portion of the time. So the only good option here is to call. You have to realize he is getting excellent immediate pot odds, right? He has to put in 8 to try to win 30. So he needs to win something like 25-ish% of the time. And he will, as long as he's not going to get check raised too often. Calling is very, very good. He calls. Let's see what Linus does with his set now.
$26.
Yes.
Let's see if Anson can wisely get away with this top pair no kicker. He does. Brewer now.
With his set, Linus comes to life. He makes it 26,000. It is worth noting both Brewer and Anson are relatively short stacked, roughly 50 to 70,000 deep. So this is a raise that is going to cut off a lot of the immediate draws from both players. And it's a raise that will get a lot of players to commit their entire stack with something like ace-jack if they have it. That said, Anson realizes ace-6 is not too good in this scenario. He lets it go pretty easily, which is definitely the right play. I think a lot of people in Anson's shoes think, well, I only have 50,000 left. What can I do? I got to put it in with my top pair 6 kicker. But no. You are going to be very, very dead in this spot. All right, back around to Brewer. Let's watch him do some math.
Likely doesn't think Linus is making a move. Doesn't have too much fold equity, given the action. Perhaps he makes the call and try to hit his hand. Does come in with the call.
Brewer thinks for a while and decides to make the call, and you may say he's not getting the right immediate odds to draw to his straight, given he only has, how many outs? 8 outs, which means he's going to get there on the turn about 16-ish% of the time. And that is true. The thing is, though, is that if he does make a straight, he's going to be pretty likely to get paid off because he's not going to have all that much money remaining in his stack. So this is a spot where Brewer's not getting quite the right immediate pot odds, but he is getting excellent implied odds to the point that calling is close, but it does make sense. And in these cash games, when you're playing two of the best players in the world against each other, you have to fight for whatever edge you have. So he does. Let's head to the turn.
Chris Brewer makes the straight. Another spade does come. Chris Brewer does have just 53k remaining with a 74k pot. Contemplating taking the lead here. Doesn't want to give those two pairs and sets a free card. Looks like he is going to just push it in himself.
The turn is the 2 of spades, putting up the flush, but also giving Brewer the straight. It's good for him. He thinks this is a good enough spot to just rip his whole stack in. 53,000 into the 74,000 pot. Nice. Before we see what Linus does, what I want to know is which bluffs do you think Brewer would have in his range to also play in this same manner? Take a second. Think about it and let me know in the comment section down below. This is a very odd spot because the 2 of spades completes all the flopped flush draws as well as the obvious 6-5 open-ended straight draw. And I'm kind of having a hard time coming up with any logical bluffs. I mean, perhaps if Brewer somehow has something like ace with a jack of spades or something, maybe that's a hand that could bluff in this situation. Maybe if he had something like 7-6 with a 7 of spades, he decides to bluff. That seems insane to me, though. So I'm not actually sure there are any bluffs in this spot, or very few. Now, look, Brewer's super duper world-class GTO player. Maybe he finds some. I think what he's actually doing here, though, is he's recognizing that Linus's check raise on the flop range is going to be a whole lot of hands that are almost always good but vulnerable, like ace-king, ace-4, ace-3, sets, right? And if Brewer shoves in this scenario, he is essentially cutting off those hands' ability to check behind on the turn and then try to improve on the river. Because if he is sitting here, well, with something like 3 of a kind, like we see, he only has 23% equity. And by shoving, Brewer forces Linus to have something like 28% equity based on the pot odds, assuming Brewer literally never bluffs. So it's a play that should result in Brewer just collecting the pot while also taking away Linus's 23% equity. This is a pretty cool play. It's a spot you don't see come up very often. But here it is, and I think it actually does make a whole lot of sense. The one big downside to shoving is that when Brewer's against the flush, he just loses. But recognize, if he's against the flush, he's just losing anyway, right? So that doesn't really matter. The main concern here is how do I take away the equity my opponent has? And shoving does exactly that, or it forces Linus into making a borderline / maybe slightly losing call.
53.
They spread the pot a bit.
Linus requesting the dealer to spread the pot a bit to see if he's getting the right odds to continue here. Looking to boat up against the straight at least. Is there ever a world where maybe he's up against a worse hand in the set, like 2 pair?
5-4 red. Ooh.
After a bit of thought, probably some confusion, Linus makes the call. Let's see who wins.
We can go twice, or once, whatever you want. I don't care.
Up to you. Yeah, decide.
Yeah, let's go twice.
2 times.
First board or second board? to
Close
win?
board.
First board gets the card of freedom.
First one to Linus Loeliger, as he does boat up. Gonna chop this one up.
Everyone loves a chop pot. Talk to you next time.